We have news from the DCC, and unfortunately, it's at least in part very sad news. Last week, our founder at the Center for Clinical Trials, Kurt Meinert, passed away at the age of 88. He was born in Sleepy Eye or Prairieville, Minnesota, on a farm on June 30th, 1934. So today would have been his 89th birthday. And Kurt was very careful about his language. And whenever we said someone was having a birthday, he would always tell me, he said, "Bob, you only have one birthday. Everything else is just an anniversary of your birthday." So we have to take that under advisement today. So Kurt is a giant in the field of clinical trials, and those of us who have dedicated our lives to that know about him, but not that many other people realize what his contributions have been. He literally wrote the book on clinical trials. Here are 5 of his textbooks that have gone into multiple editions. One, The Insider's Guide to Clinical Trials, we distributed a few years ago to our PIs. And if you have that on your bookshelf, this would be a great time to take it out and look through it. Particularly the chapter on authorship in multi-center clinical trials is probably the best treatise on the ins and outs of that. So please remember that. Also, his clinical trials dictionary gives us a great deal of conceptual information about the usage of terms, which he was very particular about. Can I have the next slide?
Bob, if I can just interject, and I think some others are putting some comments up, is that when I established our clinical trials course at Northwestern decades ago, this is what I used, and that was the major document that was used for the course.
Yeah, so we are getting some comments here, but I want to point out that much of his wisdom he shared with a series of memos and emails to me and his other 94 best friends. They would come out sometimes several times a week, but they're memorialized on his website, trialsmeinertsway.com. And I would advise everybody who has any interest in clinical trials, either as a site or as a coordinating center, to spend some time perusing this website, particularly the group of memos called Tables 101. Just about everything we do at the Data Coordinating Center, we try to do it Kurt Meinert's way. The next slide really talks about the things that we do that were all recommended and advised and outlined by Kurt. And in particular, we produce a lot of documents, and he prescribed the font and the font sizes, the heading, the page numbering, even the way that that documents should be stapled so that you can open the pages without having to flip them up, where the page numbering goes so you can quickly find a page, the tables to make tables readable. And those of you who've worked with other coordinating centers know that I think we produce the best and most legible tables around, following Kurt's directives. As I said, he was also very careful about language, and I just want to tell a story about what he meant to me personally, because when I was a young faculty person, the very first multi-site clinical trial where I was sort of given the opportunity to write the grant for was the lung health study too, which was a big trial. Um, uh, I was told by Sonia Buse, whom we still work with, that you got to get Kurt Meinert to read over your application. So I hardly knew Kurt, but I brought him the grant, which was in paper in those days. I gave it to him and asked if he would just look it over and give me some suggestions. Well, I think he spent 2 or 3 full days looking at it, because it came back to me in very short time, totally savaged and rewritten. Particularly every time I used the word study, he would change it to trial. Every time I said subject or patient, he would turn it into participant. When I said intervention, he wrote, an intervention is when one country invades another. You're using a treatment, and would change it all to treatments. And at the parts where I said things like, we were the first people to find, or this is the only finding of whatever, he would circle it and say, this is probably wrong, and cross it out. He would take large paragraphs that I thought were beautifully written, cross them all out, and say, you don't need to say this. Needless to say, the grant was much improved with his generous editing. It was funded on the first go round, and actually became one of my first multi-center negative clinical trials. So I thank him for that. One of the story is that when he returned the grant to me, on the front page were the letters, large print, BTS. And I went to one of the other people at the center and said, Alice, what does this mean, BTS? And she said to me, oh, that's Kurt. It means he really liked it. I said, what does it stand for? She said, it means better than shit. So that was his top grade, or at least I never got any other grades from him. So everything we do, we owe to Kurt, and he's going to be a big loss to us, but we do perhaps his greatest gift, if I could have the next slide. Kurt's daughter Jill works for us, and she carries on in his tradition of excellence and hard work, and we're very grateful to her and stand by her in this time of grief, and in blessed memory of Kurt.